The value of your financial planning business. My name is Sarah Drury and I will be your facilitator for today. Before we get started, I would just like to go through some housekeeping to ensure today runs smoothly. Firstly, today's event will be recorded and you will receive a recording within 48 hours of the webinar's conclusion. We encourage you to interact and engage with us throughout today's session. Please participate in the polls, which will launch on your screen at various times, and also feel free to ask questions through the chat function on the right side. So to test this feature out to begin with, can everyone please type yes into the box if they can hear me loud and clear? Yep, excellent. And I'm taking that as a sign. If a few people can, then the rest can as well. Thank you. So let's get straight into it. I would like to welcome Tony Arena from BCI Business Brokers. Tony is the Managing Director of BCI Business Brokers, boasting over 35 years of experience in business broking in Australia. He has dedicated his career to helping business owners navigate the complexities of selling their businesses. He is a fellow of the Australian Institute of Business Brokers, a registered business valuer, and a respected figure in the industry. I'd like to welcome it over to Tony so he can introduce our presenter for today.
Hey, thanks, Sarah, and thanks for organising the webinar series here so efficiently. You won't be hearing too much from me because we have a very important guest speaker coming up and I want to cut to him very soon. But as far as I'm concerned, I've been business broking, as Sarah said, 35 years, and in recent times focusing on financial services. You're in financial services, our attendees, and if you have a look at those four arms, financial planning, mortgage broking, insurance broking and accounting, you're in those professions at the right time, because I have found that industries are booming, demand is very high for your businesses, and that means that values are going up. Supply can't keep up with demand, and in my experience over the years, if you're well prepared for sale and you've got a good business to offer, you will sell it well and sell it for a good price. Then I ran into Mark Lewin, who walks the walk and then now talks about where he's walked. So he's done it. There's plenty of presenters you'll meet and you know, they couldn't make it in business, so they end up training people. He's done it, and you're going to be excited to hear his message. I've always talked about increasing the value of a business, and that's what you're going to hear about today. Value is a function of two things for me: some sort of revenue or profit figure. It could be either one, and then a multiplier. And the ways you can improve the value of your business, most people say, oh, just boost your profit and your business will be worth more. But Mark has a very important message which goes a little bit further than that and says, if you prepare your business properly, you will improve that multiple. My experience when I've engaged in coaching other business owners how to get their business ready for sale, not only do you improve your value, but you improve your profit at the same time by virtue of working on your business, and have a lot more fun in doing so. So without any further ado, over to Mark.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Tony, and welcome everyone else. And today, hopefully, in my presentation, we'll be easily able to demonstrate how you can increase the value of your business way beyond limits that you may have thought of. So yes, I was a financial planner from 1995 through to 2020 when I sold my business. And I'll be talking about the lead up, the 10-year lead up of that sale. And Back Office Hero actually started in 2018 before I had any thoughts of selling my business. And it started because a number of my licensee colleagues and financial planners elsewhere were knocking on the door and just suggesting that they'd like to know our secrets because it was perceived that we were compliant, profitable, and under control. And that may have been correct in the last 10 years of my financial planning, but it certainly wasn't in the first 15 years. So The secret of growing the value of your business is really in building a business system. And I'd like to make two distinctions right from the start. I'm going to assume that everyone is an above average financial planner because you've basically got two roles. You've got the role of financial planner and you've also got the role of business owner. And so you do have to have a set of procedures, checklists, and templates to run the financial planning aspect, but you've also got to have the procedures, checklists, and templates to run business activities. So there's a distinction there, your role as a planner and your role as a business owner. And at times, we've all struggled with the business aspect of running our financial planning practices. And for the record, the first 15 years of my 25-year planning history, I struggled in the business aspects. I loved financial planning from day one. I still get a kick out of helping financial planners in that aspect. But it took me a long time to realize that I also had to get on top of the small business aspects of my business. So when you engage with Back Office Hero, you'll often hear us talking about the transitioning from being a practice owner right through to being a business manager. So let's go to the slides. And so maximizing the value of your business. And we call it growth by design and not by accident. So let's go through this. Growth should be the result of deliberate action. It has to be a strategy that your entire business is aware of. It is stated in your business plans. Your staff know about it. And it's, as I said, a deliberate activity that you've got as a goal inside your business. And business owners, and indeed your office managers, should make data-driven decisions backed up by the data of your business. So you've got to understand the data. And we need constant evaluation of your business system. So we've heard about the likes of Toyota. They honestly believe that in every worker's hands, there is knowledge. And they believe that they must grab that knowledge, and they actively ask every worker in the Toyota factories around the world to give their ideas as to how they can improve the business. And they're all about tiny incremental changes to the business. And it should be the same in any small business, and you should promote it amongst your staff. You need robust business procedures, and I'm going to demonstrate how that's the foundation of growing a healthy business. And of course, to measure is to manage. Now, there is the first slogan that we're going to talk about today. And slogans are bandied around left, right, and center by all of us, including business coaches. And a lot of people can say to measure is to manage, but a lot of people don't really understand what that means. And we'll deep dive into that shortly. So growth by accident is unplanned, unpredictable, and potentially unsustainable. Let me give you a story to explain this. We had clients about 7-8 years ago, Scott and Sally, and Scott was nearing retirement. And he said, look, in the next 1 to 2 years, I'm going to move into retirement. And I said, Scott, you've told me that you share me with 2 other financial planners. And I'm telling you right now that it's in your best interest that you need 1 financial planner going forward. So you probably need to ask the 3 planners to present to you to see who you're going to choose, because And if it's not me, so be it. It's got to be in your best interest. So Scott agreed with that plan. And anyway, he lived closer to the city than from my office in Pymble. So we actually arranged to get an office in the BT Tower. We met them there. I took my asset consultant along to explain the subtle difference in portfolios when you move from accumulation phase to retirement phase. And my office manager came along and we had a PowerPoint presentation that we provided. A couple of weeks later, Scott got back to me and I said, how did it go with the two other financial planners? And he said, well, one of them just said he would rely on me making the decision. So we didn't actually meet. I thought that was strange. And the other financial planners simply arranged a video conference meeting and they had a chat about retirement. So Scott and Sally said, so you're it, Mark, because your presentation was well prepared and we want to go with you. So that turned an $8,000 annual fee client into a $28,000 fee client because we prepared to convert that strategy and to keep a client. And we all know it's more cost effective to keep your client than to actually find a new client. So how do we go about maximizing our business? Let me just point out, and I want to convey the importance of strategic planning here. Your primary objective involving a sale in the next year or 15 years is to be sale ready. Now, a couple of things. Back Office Hero doesn't necessarily deal with people who are wanting to sell in the next 12 to 24 months. We're all about helping financial planners grow their businesses and grow their valuations. However, we have dealt with 3 planners who wanted to sell in 12 months, and we got that sale happening for them. And there's another slogan, sale ready. I'll be explaining what sale ready means. And so I've said your primary objective involved is to be sale ready. What does this mean? It means in October every year, produce an annual information memorandum. So again, some of us, when we hear information memorandum, we think about a sale, and that is correct. But an information memorandum is much more than that. It is a due diligence document. It is a sale ready document, but it's also a marvelous management tool to help you grow and manage your business. So what's inside the information memorandum? Of course, it's got your business location and details and entity structure, of course, but you've also got client metrics over time, business metrics over time, and that's around funds under management and fees, client retention details. How many new clients do you put on every year? And how many clients leave your practice every year? And if you're doing this information memorandum and something negative happens in the business, you're able to write up the reasons why something happened and to give an explanation as to why it may not happen in the future. Because towards the latter part of my financial planning career, we would ask clients to leave the practice if they didn't join in to the processes and the procedures and the way we conducted business. And usually that got down to if clients were being negative to my staff or wouldn't turn up for annual review meetings, etc. We also want to produce financial ratios. And if you're doing the information memorandum over several years, you will indeed have your own trend analysis to look at. And it gives staff and job activities and descriptions and your systems, software and hardware. So it is a wonderful tool to not only grow your business, but also to become compliant and sale ready. Now, I just want to pause here and really stress out the following about an information memorandum. By doing this every year, there is a transformative power of producing it, and it lies in its ability to compel you to make business decisions that constantly enhance and improve the perception and performance for your business year after year. What this means is, after I'd done a couple of information memorandums, I knew each decision I made could potentially change the outlook of the next IM. So if my average FUM per client was $1 million, and I had two prospects, one had $500,000 to invest and one had a bit over 1 million, you can see that making that decision to take on a 500,000 client would bring down an average. And so it made you take note of all of your decisions, and it compelled you to try and make all of the decisions where the metrics and your ratios would look better and better. And so it's almost like a magic power that takes over. So, Sarah, it's poll time. I believe you're going to take over.
Yes, that's correct. We've just launched a poll, which should be coming up on your screen now. And the question for that is, does your business currently produce an annual information memorandum? So if you could just complete those answers, and they will then be shared with the team. And Mark, you should be able to see that in the poll tab.
I can, thank you.
Over to you.
So we have, there's a 1 yes and 5 no's, if I'm reading that correctly. So let's move on. So I immediately took you to the end of my story in as much as producing that information memorandum to be sale ready. Now I want to take you back to the start and my hard road, because as I said, financial planning was enjoyable. Running my business was a lot more difficult. So I had a 25-year history as the financial planner. Then opportunity knocked, and your road doesn't have to be that difficult. So Back Office Hero has come about, and we just simply want to help other financial planners compress the time that they can make this transition from being a practice owner to a business manager. So on the screen is data for Markson Financial Planning, my business that I ran in the suburb of Brisbane in Sydney. And there was myself, and normally there was about 4 staff. Typical staff, there was the reception administrator, paraplanner, client service manager, and towards the latter parts, there was an office manager. But you can see 2 distinct periods here. And I started in 1995. The graph picks up in 2005. And as we move across to 2010, there wasn't much happening in terms of growth. And then all of a sudden, for the last 10 years of my financial planning history, things took off. And it's a very interesting story on what actually happened. And so there are the 3 periods. We were flatlining, but I was enjoying every day of giving strategic advice to clients, but didn't have a handle on the small business. And then there was the turning point. What happened here that sent the business growing? And for the last 9 or 10 years, we went through that growth phase. So back in 2006, my wife and I decided to take 3 young kids out of school and to drive around Australia. We took 10 months off, and we traveled 47,000 kilometers. And there was a lot of time me driving that car on the highways of Australia, and I kept thinking about my practice back in Pymble. Did I have a business? What was the value of that business? And what possibly could I do to improve it and to grow? And so when I got back, I went straight to business health. You may know business health, run by Terry Bell and Rod Patino, and they do all the benchmarking for our industry. And I sat them down and I said, guys, I've got this idea that I should do a mock sale of my practice because I want to know if I've got a business and I want to know what its value is. And they thought that was a great idea. And they came back to me and said, Mark, we've spoken to 6 individuals from around Australia who are involved in valuing practices and buying practices and improving practice management. So we're going to line up 2 days, and individually, you're going to sell your business to these professionals. All you have to do is go away and produce your information memorandum. And I thought, that's great. But Terry, what is an information memorandum? And they explained it to me, and it took my right-hand person, my paraplanner, and myself a good 5 to 6 weeks to cobble together all of the metrics of my business. But I can assure you, every year we did that activity, it got down, it was a faster process to follow. And in the latter years, we used to produce the IM in an afternoon. So we've now entered the GFC years, 2008, 2009, and this certainly sobers up small business owners. In fact, business managers around the world had to look at what they were doing and how they were managing businesses, and it certainly was the same for financial planners in Australia. And many coaches had said, package up your B and C grade clients and pass them over to another financial planner who will probably love them more than you can, and you're left with A grade clients. And so without a real appreciation of that, indeed, whilst I was away traveling around Australia, one of the other financial planners in our licensee became our locum. And whenever advice had to be given, and he worked out of my office, my staff would bring him into the meeting room and he would present the advice through his own AR. And so I said to him, if you can stick around while I'm traveling Australia and another further 2 years after I've come back, I want to pass on to you 215 B and C grade clients. And a strange thing happened. A year after I got back, and still 1 year before I had to pass over the clients, free of charge, mind you, Ben came and said, Mark, I'd really love to take over these clients now. I'll pay you $50,000 and buy them from you. So looking back, there are a number of things occurred that I didn't realize at the time. But here was a young financial planner. He had looked into my business. He had provided advice to my clients. He saw our file notes and client files, and he liked what he saw, and he paid $50,000, but he could have just waited a year and got them all for free. But on that day, we went from 315 clients down to 100 clients. So we dropped client numbers by 69%, but we only dropped revenue by 11%. Let's carry on. So we're licking our wounds through the GFC years. You can see that green line, which is recurrent income. I've sold some clients, so there's a dip there. The blue bars are the funds under management. You can see the trough we went into. And there was a particular day in the office when my staff were just bitching about the CRM that we were using. And I had to get them all into the boardroom. And I said, look, guys, we're going to use this platform, this CRM, and it's going to be the system that runs my business. So I don't want any negative talk about it anymore. And it was almost like the light bulb turned on. And from that day on, I organized extra training to use that CRM and to get the most out of its use and to become very efficient. And it's a good way of realizing that your staff have a very big influence on your business activities. And it also told me that as the owner manager, it was my duty to organize training, because someone had told me that if you've got an underperforming staff member, don't blame them. They're probably undertrained. And training is a management decision. So bring in the training and up the efficiency of each staff member. So 2011, another unique event occurred. One of my colleagues in the licensee had had a difficult time mentally going through the GFC and seeing his clients' balances fall. And he realized that financial planning wasn't for him. And he approached me one day and said, Mark, I've got to get out of this industry. I'm going to sell my practice, and you're the only financial planner I would sell it to. So will you please buy it? This was quite unique because I was put in a position where I could pick up this business. And indeed, because of that invitation, we picked it up at a very sharp price. And it was all because one of my colleagues perceived that we were under control, that we had systems, and that we would service his clients the same way he did. Now, of course, it's like a duck swimming across the pond. I wasn't that confident that we could do it. We still had our moments of chaos in the back office. We hadn't fully systemized the business, but we took on that practice, and it was a definite turning point. Now, it was our first foray into outsourcing. And when I mean outsourcing up to Manila in the Philippines. A friend had actually started a transcription business up there. And so I can remember after an annual review meeting, clients left, picked up the mobile phone, hit the recording, did this rough and ready file note, emailed it up, and it came back the next day, and we had started outsourcing. Now, to this day, we've completely built out better templates on how to make purpose-driven file notes. And there's a template for an initial client meeting. There's a different template for annual review meetings and a different template again for an SOA presentation meeting. And so we've fully developed templates for meetings. And what I used to do, I'd send the template to professional standards. And I would get them to give me the tick of approval that inside my file note templates was all of the compliance activities and disclosures and disclaimers that we should have there. Now, after purchasing that business, we ended up with 5 administration platforms. Now, when you've got yourself and 4 staff members, if we're all trying to understand 5 different methods of 5 different admin platforms, that is inefficient. It's inefficiency. And so we started to consolidate down to just 2 admin platforms. Now, I've heard a number of financial planners over the year say, well, we simply can't consolidate platforms because it won't be in the client's best interest, because there might be some capital gains liabilities to be had. Firstly, that is correct, but there are ways around that. Now, if we were getting down to just 2 or 3 clients left on a particular platform and there was a liability, I would have a discussion that maybe that there's another financial planner who uses that platform and it would be in the client's best interest if I introduced them. And those clients would leave the practice because it was in their best interest. On another couple of occasions, we worked out that if I'd swapped platforms, there was going to be a capital gains tax liability of $5,500. Now, that's not in the client's best interest to be hit with that just because the manager wanted to consolidate platforms. However, I got the clients to go to their account and make sure that the calculations were correct. And then I said, because it's in your best interest, I'm going to move you. But I was also looking at the longevity of this client staying not for 1 year, but for 10 years. And I said, I will turn off my planning fees for 6 months that will easily cover the $5,500 tax liability. And they agreed. And those clients stayed on right till the sale of my business many years later. So there are ways that an astute business manager will find to bring these efficiencies into the business. And sometimes it might cost you in the short term, but you're building a business for the long term. Now, I've got to thank the Russell Investment Group for introducing me to client ranking. And they had a bit of a tool that they introduced way back in about 2014. And Back Office Hero has utilized the same concept. And we now provide client ranking to our current set of clients. But by being able to rank clients, it showed you your most profitable clients and the most easiest clients to get on with. And also it showed you the bottom 10 or 20% of clients that weren't as profitable. And maybe they were difficult because not only does client ranking have a look at FUM and fees, but it also looks at how difficult the client is to serve. And so you can build this into a client ranking procedure. And so we then understood if we were going to move on another bunch of B and C grade clients, our client ranking was a tool that helped us make that decision based on data. And indeed, 5-6 years after the first sale of B and C grade clients, we did it again. Now, interestingly enough, we had an internal paraplanner who was going to purchase them and become a financial planner inside my business. But that fell over, and another financial planner heard and said, Mark, I want to come and buy those clients that you were potentially selling. I know your business. I know your client files. I know your compliance history. I'll buy them at a 3 times multiple. I hadn't said anything at this stage, and here is someone approaching me wanting to buy my B and C grade clients from a perception that our business was giving off, that we were organised, efficient and profitable, and that sale went through. Moving on, and also thinking about this transition from a practice owner to a business manager, I realised that the information memorandums up to 2015 spoke about Mark Lewin's experience and Mark Lewin's qualifications. And I thought, if I'm an astute business person, the information memorandum should just be about Mark's and financial planning. And in that year, I completely deleted any mention of Mark Lewin because it had to be about the business. Later on, we discovered that we had to train financial planners to listen to their business, because in reality, the business gives off signals that things are wrong and things need to be fixed. And so if you can grasp this concept of listening to your business, it actually tells you what to do. By this stage, our outsourcing had progressed quite nicely, and we were dabbling with outsourcing the entire annual review document. And we commenced in 2015. And so the business up in Manila, in the Philippines, was able to take our written procedures and checklists and templates and build the complete annual review document. And we learnt that we had to almost outsource the quality control in our pinball business up to Manila, because Mr. Lewin had a rule that when he took a document into a meeting in front of a client, he didn't want to be embarrassed. And so it was this constant struggle to make sure that a document was, the font was the same on every page. The graph that had to go in on page 5 was there. There were no blank pages. And by outsourcing the quality control, it improved our efficiency, and it was how we wrote our procedures. So our procedures included questions that the outsourcing people had to double check before they gave us the documents, because we've all heard of horror stories where financial planners have tried to outsource, and the staff back in Australia spend more time fixing up the document than it took them to actually put it together. But we had a very good relationship. We nurtured that relationship, and we started outsourcing every annual review document in 2015. And so you can now see this progression where, as I started to not only, I was the financial planner, but I started to build this practice, and I started to concentrate on building a system to gain efficiencies. And if you do that, the efficiencies actually bring a better compliance outcome. It starts to impact positively on your profitability. And all of this meets up with an improving enterprise value. And we could see that the value of our business was going up the more efficient we became. And then in 2018, we had what we refer to as our car crash moment. Up until that stage, I used to put together my own client portfolios. And I remember the day, it was the Macquarie High Conviction Australian Share Fund. It had a miraculous 5-year history. It was the best performing Aussie share manager in Australia, and it was across about 215 of our clients' portfolios. And the 4 top managers decided to leave and go and start up their own boutique funds management group. And Lonsec put that fund on redeem. So I had to stop my business for 5 weeks. We wrote up all the records of advice. I presented them to clients. Back then, I used to get the clients to sign off on every transaction change. Then we had to go to the administration platform and do the sell and do the buy and put all the data back into the CRM. 5 weeks it took, which took us away from giving our normal service to all of our clients. And that is the day I decided that we needed to move to managed accounts. And I won't debate managed accounts in today's webinar, but they bring a whole lot of efficiencies to any financial planning practice. And in reality, I was not a professional investment manager. I was a financial planner. And so I learned that my clients, it was in my clients' best interest to actually move them to managed accounts, and completely eradicated any further notion that we might be stopped by doing 50, 100, 150 records of advice into the future. So what did it actually mean to my business? Because we had turned the corner, we had built a business system, we had particular procedures that weren't client related, they were business related, and they included things like building an ideal client calculator, the client ranking, and various tools now that Back Office Hero provides to all of our clients to make sure that they become very efficient and that it's part of building the business system. So on the screen right now, 2010, we had recurrent income of $389,000. And the average back then was a multiple of 2.5 times, just under $1 million valuation. 2019, ongoing revenue was $1.2 million. And I thought that we were valued at 3.35 times. And you can see that there is a large difference then. And of course, there was 10 years worth of growth. But later on, after selling my business, I believed that by having that business system, it meant about $1 million gain to the Lewin family. Now, this is when opportunity knocked. So early 2019, I've got this meeting on a Friday afternoon with the CEO of Fitzpatrick's, the licensee that I was at, and we're with the business coach, and they were questioning me about my business, and I was telling them that we ranked clients, and we had an ideal client calculator, and we did an official client list, and we did gap analyses. And the CEO said to me, "Mark, I don't think you can work on that business any further." He said, I get this feeling that you should just pat yourself on the back, sell your business, and maybe there's something else you can do in the industry. And silence came across that meeting as I heard this sentence and the ramifications of what this meant. And finally, the CEO said, "How about you go away for 3 months, put all your metrics together, and give me the facts and figures of your business. I think I've got a buyer for your business." And he didn't understand that come Monday, that afternoon, I simply emailed my sale ready document. I emailed him the 2019 Information Memorandum. And within 5 months of being introduced to a buyer, I had sold my business. And I told the CEO on the very first day, I wanted $4 million for this business. And I ended up dealing at exactly the same amount. It was $20,000 under that $4 million. And I remember saying to the buyer sometime after, I gave you that price and I dealt at that price. And you really didn't give me much pushback because I was ready to negotiate down a touch. And he said, "Mark, I had done due diligence on 11 other practices. And when I saw how you have gained control, put in a business system, written all those procedures, checklists, and templates, and that I could take a couple of your staff, I thought, I'm just going to buy this business because I won't find this opportunity again." So it's just another part of my story about struggling to be a business owner, but loving financial planning, and then gradually learning the hard yards of running a small business. And so Back Office Hero took all of the experience of my own sale and also of what the buyer was telling us. And we've gone from strength to strength, helping other financial planners in Australia grow their businesses. So, Sarah, it's poll time. I'll hand back to you.
Yes, over to another poll. So I'm going to launch the poll, and this one is, there we go. In what time frame are you considering selling your business? So either within 2 years, 2 to 5 years, or beyond 5 years, and maybe you have no plans. So you can also see the percentages coming up now. You seem to have 75, up to 80% for C.
And that's absolutely fine because, as I said, back office hero, we deal with a few sellers, but we're interested in helping financial planners make the transition to becoming great small business managers. Very good there. Okay, I will continue. So, what are the top 5 things you can do to improve your business valuation? So as we've mentioned, build a business system is number 1. A little bit more on that shortly. Manage your data. Build a library of procedures, checklists, and templates. Tim Noonan used to be the Russell Investment Practice Manager expert. Mainly gave advice in North America, but traveled around the world. He was in Australia, and he once told me, he said, Mark, when you eventually go to sell your business, buyers will try and push down the price. That's what they're meant to do. And you've got to try and support your price. The easiest and best way to do that is to have a notional leather-bound procedures manual. And with those procedures, you'll be able to support your share price, which a couple of years later was exactly how it panned out. Develop metrics so that you can display the trends within your business and make data-driven, better decisions. And of course, produce your annual information memorandum. What does all this mean, though? And this is one of my favorite images. Building a business system, and I believe this is a Mercedes-Benz factory. And we can see that their business system uses robotics to produce a very high quality car. And in the manufacturing, they get excellent consistency in their production line. And the same can be said about McDonald's. We all know the McDonald's story. They don't necessarily want everyone to buy a McDonald's, but those people who enter a McDonald's restaurant, McDonald's want them to get this high consistency. So no matter what country you might visit later on, you almost feel safe and secure by going in and buying a Big Mac and French fries, and it's virtually identical from your country of origin. And thereafter, great consistency around the world to sell their McDonald's products. Now, I happen to know head of technology for all of McDonald's. He actually lives in Sydney. And whenever we go on social occasions, I'm always asking him about how he manages McDonald's in terms of data and technology. And he tells some fascinating stories that McDonald's actually know that those 4 gherkins in a Big Mac cost about 1/4 cent. And they also know that if they took the gherkins out of Big Macs around the world, because they sell so many, it would end up in hundreds of millions of dollars of profit. Now, they haven't made that decision, but they know intimately of all the ingredients down to 1/4 cent, what the impact is per Big Mac. It's fascinating. He's also demonstrated to me that if a storm is approaching Sydney, there will be a change from people buying hamburgers to people buying coffee. And so they've analysed weather patterns so that they can forewarn their franchisee owners on what to expect simply based on the weather. And the other great example of building a business system that I like is Jim's Mowing. So for those people who just want to mow lawns for a living, you can go to Jim's Mowing and you can acquire a franchise area. And when you're filling out the application for Jim's Mowing, there are 8 different ways that you can buy the equipment you need, lease that equipment, rent that equipment, and they give you a pre-filled out application form if you want to go to your bank to get the finance, their financier, and it's all packaged up in the application form. So they know how to systemize the business of mowing lawns. And by the way, if someone in your franchise area wants their lawns mowed and goes onto Jim's Mowing's website, it sends the franchisee owner a message on the mobile phone. Now, at that stage, you don't have to accept that new person as a client. You can give it to the franchisee owner of the next area. You can sell it to that person, or you can simply give it back to Jim's Mowing's head office. It's all built in to the procedures for someone who simply wants to mow lawns, do the edges, and earn a living that way. So I can't stress enough the importance of building your business system. And of course, the system leads to great consistency, which adds to profitability. And of course, this is a way of increasing your enterprise value. Managing your data. Now, a lot of people have heard the saying, dirty data in, dirty data out. Well, Back Office Hero has the privilege that my business partner, Chris Morris, is fanatical about data and its management. And we're able to now go into financial planning businesses, and Chris can go into the CRM, extract data, and learn so much about that business and its value on the quality of the data. Not only that, we can then help the business owner clean the data and have complete data, and then how to manage data from that point in. A great example of a business procedure is to have a data protocol. So if you're nominating one person to input data into your CRM and they use a data input protocol, you know exactly the consistency and the quality of the data and the extent that you are using your technology and CRM. And another great example is for estate planning for my clients, I used to use Christine Page from David Lander Stewart Lawyers in Sydney. And I had data extracted from my CRM, and although there was data in the field, it might have said C Page, Christine Page, C Page DLS, or simply David Lander Stewart. And there was something like 8 different ways that I had just written the data in. With a protocol, the data goes into the field and it goes in the same way. Now, I know that's a small aspect of clean data, but if you're building a culture within your practice of clean and complete data, the way to do it is to introduce a protocol. And if you're lucky enough to be able to have one data champion do all of the data input, all of a sudden your quality increases. And that will have a positive effect on your business valuation. Okay, build a library of procedures, checklists, and templates. Now, another favorite image of mine. This is the actual glove that Neil Armstrong was wearing when he first stood on the surface of the moon. Now, Neil Armstrong was NASA's most capable astronaut back in those days, and they could trust him more than they could trust anyone else. But when you're about to do a world first, go to the moon and step down onto the surface of the moon, I imagine that his heart was beating extremely fast, and maybe NASA couldn't rely on him to make sure everything went smoothly. And on the side of that glove is a simple checklist, and it says, turn on the lights, turn on the cameras, focus the cameras, and make sure you get that video, because we only get one chance. So checklists are fascinating. If you actually Google this, they actually help with mental fatigue, because if you've got a checklist in front of you and you're just running down, firstly, it gives you great efficiency. You're extremely thorough and you're getting things done right. And you're able to improve that checklist time and time again. And so these procedures, checklists, and templates have a very big impact on the value of your business. NASA realized it, and we do have those images of Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon. Develop metrics to display trends. Once again, we want to be able to measure to manage. And so we've got to know what metrics to record, what ratios to produce. And of course, that is the input to your information memorandum. And it makes managing a business a hell of a lot easier. So it's very important that you start to develop this expertise in your business. By the way, the metrics from your business are used in an ideal client calculator where you set the parameters for your minimum requirements for a client to be invited into your practice. So you need it in procedures. You need it, as I said, in the information memorandum. And also, you'll be able to recognize opportunities for growth. So you might be running self-managed super fund or providing that kind of advice. You might be providing advice as well on aged care. And so if you're measuring all of these activities, maybe it is that you're making far more profit out of self-managed super funds than you do for aged care. And that might impact the future of your business simply by knowing the profitability of certain services that you provide. And of course, producing that annual information memorandum. It is going to be the most significant tool. It is a management tool. It is the due diligence document that you'll require, and it is your sale-ready document. So we bandied around that slogan earlier on. Sale-ready means, do you have an information memorandum, and if opportunity comes knocking, like it did for me, and I had no intention of selling that business when the CEO spoke to me that day, but we were in this unique situation where I didn't have to run around and patch up my business and ready it for sale. We were sale ready. It was done and dusted because the transformative effect of having that IM meant that year after year after year, we were slightly improving the business and growing the business system. Very, very powerful as you build the value of your own business. Now, we're going to promise to send everyone our business quality indicator as an example of one of the business procedures that you can use. This is not a financial planning procedure. And I know you can't read all of those lines, but this is a self-assessment tool. And you go through those questions, transferability, efficiency, compliance, and you mark yourself out of 100. And you'll see dark green means that you're very capable in this area of the business, and red means there's a lot of work needs to be done in these areas. But as you work through this, you get a final score, which Chris Morris has converted into a range of your multiple. And by adding in your recurrent income, you get this valuation indicator. Now, I must stress, this will not value your business. Back Office Hero are not valuers. There is my disclaimer at the base of here. But it's a wonderful self-assessment that anyone can do on their financial planning business. And you simply know where to allocate resources over the next 12 months that will improve the value of your business. Probably my favorite graph that comes out of the metrics we produce. This is about ranking your clients, and there's a upward sloping line there that you can see, which roughly measures FUM and fee. And I know that a lot more goes into pricing your services than those two, but you can see that there's a dot right down here. So there's a particular client, and I use this data to get one client to increase his annual fee by $3,300 by suggesting that my other clients were supporting him, and that through data, I needed him to sign off on a fee increase of $3,300 inside the annual review that I was conducting. He was an astute business person himself. He saw the evidence, he smiled, and he signed off that increase of $3,300. So a great example how knowing our data and ranking our clients improves the outcome of your business. So look, that ends the formal part of my presentation. Please visit our website, backofficehero.com.au. We have 3 service packages or offerings, right through to our brand new offering of an online course. And if you're wanting to dabble with the services from Back Office Hero, you might start here. It's a 6-module online course that you do at your own pace. It's just $330 per module for the 6 modules. We do offer a coaching extension to that, and our full service consulting service is also listed on our website there. And I'd love to touch base with you all just to see how Back Office Hero can help you increase the value of your business. So, Tony and Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Mark, terrific. As I prefaced at the beginning, you're talking about something that you've done. You're talking to people who do what you did and then took your business to a successful sale. Anyone with questions, as Sarah suggested, please type them in to the chat box. If you click on chat, I've got a quick question. We've got one coming in now, but Mark, you showed us that quite impressive graph of the revenue in your business going up. Tell us if you tracked at the same time your percentage of, say, support staff, planners, paraplanners as a percentage of your revenue. Did you track that in the history?
Yes, we certainly did. We had revenue per staff member, Tony. We definitely did. And if I can just add to that graph, so what was happening inside that business for the last 10 years, and we only could look back and know this, but we were converting clients into advocates. And we know an advocate actually refers you to other people. But to convert a client to an advocate, that advocate has to have complete safety and security that they can send a colleague, a neighbor, a family member to a financial planner, and that person would get a decent service. And because of the boring consistency that a business system provides to your business, for example, if you've got an annual review and you go along each May, and for whatever reason, you might be a little bit busy and that client might get pushed into June or July, they actually bring it up in their meetings. So clients do understand. And so we knew that if we're giving them an annual review in May, it had to be May every year. And so we have to get very consistent, and we call it boring consistency, so that we converted more clients to advocates because we had no other referral source other than our existing clients, and the phone never stopped ringing for that last 9 years.
Yeah. So how did you improve that staff ratio? I'm talking about, if you've got rid of your B and C clients, obviously you're dealing, number one, you're outsourcing. Secondly, you're dealing with higher revenue, wealthier clients, you're handling more money, your fees are going up, your commission, your funds under management return is getting better. Do you know how that ratio improved over time?
I don't have the facts with me, but it definitely improved significantly because if you increase your efficiency, you don't have to put on more staff. So in fact, Tony, my paraplanner and client service manager were with me for the last 13 years of Markson Financial Planning. So I didn't have to add staff, although we did outsource, but we kept the original 4 positions for virtually 25 years. But the amount of profit and the valuation, the more we were efficient, the more consistent we got with the same staff members, the valuation and the profit went up. So yes, profit per staff member also increased.
Yeah, as is obvious. Now you've told us that you did it with the same staff, a little bit of outsourcing. Okay, we do have a question as I invite other questions into the chat, but an attendee is asking, when you count recurring income, other than funds under management, I assume you include ongoing commission of insurance policies.
Yes, total revenue, and that comes from advice fees, and it comes from commissions from insurance policies if you provide that service to your clients. And we certainly did. We gave personal insurance advice. And so I'm including in total revenue, advice fees and insurance commissions.
Yeah. One thing that struck me, and as I say, specialising in this field of professional financial services over the last number of years, is that a lot of the market seems to just accept this rule of thumb multiplier of revenue, be it 2, 2.5, 3. What do you think about a revenue multiplier as opposed to a profit multiplier?
So probably every month for the last 20 years, people want to tell me that it's moving to a multiple of net profit. To this very day, the transactions that I see are still a multiple of recurrent income.
Right.
So that's all I can say. It's the anecdotal evidence that most practices, and probably practices under a value of $5 million, get sold on a multiple of recurrent income.
Yeah, so one goes for 2.5 and the other one goes for 3.3, like you sold for. The difference there could be along the lines of every single implementation of better systems, less stress, easier management of clients. But profitability could also figure there in varying that top and bottom of the range.
It is all tied in. And in fact, you can increase the value of your business without putting on a single client by becoming more efficient and profitable, and see a 2.5 turn into a 3.5. And so, yes, new clients, lovely for the bottom line, but it's also if you can demonstrate that you've got a business system that any other buyer, so you're after transferability, the ability of a buyer to go, oh, do you know what? I'll take that financial planning business and I can easily bolt it onto the side of mine. I can't see a lot of costs involved. It looks fairly compliant. That looks like an easy transaction. Now, some of the transactions we have done, they're muddied because of a whole raft of reasons. That is why I love to see a business where you're looking after superannuation and non-superannuation money on an admin platform. You're doing personal insurances. You're arranging estate planning documents. You're looking after your clients, and you do that consistently every year. And you've got a track record of clients that have been with you for more than 10 years. That's another important metric. And if you can put all that together, business owners want your practice over the other three for sale.
I'm smiling as I anticipate the answer to this next question, but an attendee is asking, before you sold the B and C clients, had you considered hiring a junior advisor to look after them? Then clients' wealth and fee charge would increase as time goes, and that increase remains within the business.
Yes, let's address this. B and C grade clients don't miraculously necessarily turn into A grade clients. When you let go of B and C grade clients, you immediately open up capacity for more A grade clients. You're not waiting years. And remember, as you become the astute business manager, you don't put up with underperforming assets or low profit clients. And the astute business manager wants A grade clients. And you have to, if you're going to let go of clients, you have to do it with great respect. For example, when I sold that last tranche, the contract that I signed had the financial planner coming back into my practice for 3 consecutive years to conduct the annual review of the clients I sold. So they were familiar, coming back to familiar offices where they could park their car, come into my boardroom, see the new financial planner. And we actually put the financial planner onto our investment committee. So my client said, oh, this is not bad. Mark's just not dropping us. I go back into the same office. I can say hello to Mark. I go back into the same boardroom. The new financial planner is part of the investment committee. So Mark is still influencing the outcome. So that is a way, with great respect, we moved on B's and C's, but the new financial planner could love them more than what I could because I was concentrating on the A grade clients. So it was in the best interests of my A grade clients to let go of the B's and C's, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, and also I'm guessing that it's easy to say, oh, just put on someone, put him in the corner over there to look after the clients, but ownership of the business is involved with every single client, right?
That's right. And I'll finish off your original question. if you're going to add financial planners, you're immediately adding a salary, which is a liability. And you've given them B and C grade clients. But I didn't need to do that. My ongoing recurrent revenue when I sold was close to $1.3 million, and I was the single financial planner. So what I'd like to stress is just become more efficient yourself and your existing staff, and you can still grow a multi-million-dollar financial planning practice in the suburbs anywhere in Australia.
Personally, I'm seeing this trend, and at the conferences of the leading insurance brokerages, mortgage brokerages, and now I'm assuming financial planning businesses, the stars of the industry are turning up and saying exactly what you've said. I'm doing all this myself with a support staff of 5, rather than putting on 3 other loan writers or whatever it might be, financial planners to cover the load. The load is covered by the support around the star player in the company.
Correct.
Okay. We might even give people an early lunch here, where we've come up to an hour 15. Sarah's going to sign off. Unless there are any more questions, could you quickly put those questions into the box? Otherwise, give us some quick feedback on your way out. But I'll hand over to Sarah for what's going to happen post-event.
Thanks, Tony. And thank you, Mark, for a very engaging presentation. I'm sure everyone took away a few thoughts they can apply straight away. For everyone online, we hope you enjoyed today's session. You will be receiving an email within 48 hours that will have a link to the recording, as well as any supporting documentation and Mark's details if you wish to contact him after the event as well. Within that, there'll also be a quick survey just to get your feedback on today's event, so please feel free to provide any information or any additional feedback. Other than that, that's all from us. So thank you once again, gentlemen. It was great having you on today, and thank you everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.